Welcome to Wordbirds, where you'll hear content conversations directly from the flock. Join Christopher Willis in conversation with content experts and thought leaders as they chat about how to make the most out of your words in business. Here's your host, Chris.
Hello and welcome to Wordbirds, a birds of a feather conversation amongst people that care about words. Today on the show, we have the content wrangler. Scott Abel is here with us today. We're going to be talking about the benefits of placing all of your product content in one place, not just physically in one place, but spiritually across the organization in one place, and reimagining the way that we deliver information across the entire customer journey. That, among a lot of other topics today on the show. Let's sit back and get some insight from the flock. Hi, Scott. Welcome to the show. Excited to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I mean, I think it's fun to talk to you because there is a certain celebrity element to the content wrangler. We have, for the listener, we've actually only, Scott and I have only talked once on a call. So a lot of what you're getting is a conversation long built up to where we are today. So I think that'll be fun and interesting. But one of the things that I think you're talking about right now that's an interesting topic to lean into. I have a vision that within our organization, we have one copy of everything. It all lives centrally. Anywhere that it's used, anytime, anywhere in the world, I can measure its usefulness, the ROI of that piece of content. But let's even go smaller than that and just talk about product content. Having content in one place seems like a really interesting idea that nobody seems to understand or actually execute on. Where do you see the value, the importance of bringing all your product content together into one place? Why is that a thing?
I think for me, it's a thing because for the customer, the end user human being who's looking for information on something about a product, I'm certain that the amount of effort that's required to retrieve that information and successfully use it is important to people. They don't like to waste their time. So why make all of these roadblocks preventing them from getting to the content? That's one reason. I think internally, there's also some business reasons to try to aggregate and collate a lot of content. Maybe there are certain types of content you wouldn't include in the everything basket, right? Because the everything might include things that for whatever reason, internally you may decide is not a good idea. But if you did it internally, the benefits would be a single source of content for everyone in the company to go to as well. So the support team could see the same kinds of content that everybody else could see. And I think today these silos, each department inadvertently creates hurdles to getting to the information. And when we attempt to solve it, we do it in a mediocre way. So maybe internally we say, we have a local area network. We will create an intranet website and we will just dump it all in there. And then we'll just put a search engine on top of it. And so that doesn't improve the experience. It just gives people a kind of a bigger Google without the smarts to search. And then they're frustrated. So I think productivity and savings inside, control and governance might be other internal reasons to have everything in one place. And then externally, convenience and just making customers' lives easier, I think, is the main benefit to bringing all product knowledge into one portal.
Yeah, I mean, from where I sit, I see that the primary benefit for me is understanding what actually gets used. We create so much content on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and for whom? And to your point, you throw it out there in a repository somewhere, make it searchable. I really have no idea whether it's actually providing any value to anybody. So from the creation standpoint, am I creating what people need? And then from the maintenance standpoint, what am I uplifting? When images change, when messaging changes, when company brand changes, what's being used? And there's 25 copies of it. So how do I even start?
It seems like if you were going to try to tackle that problem, you have to rethink how the organization you work for is creating, managing, and delivering content. So it's not just enough to put it all in one place. You probably will have to make changes in the way that you create the content so that they content assets appear to be from the same brand, speaking from the same voice, using the same words, which of course is why we care about words in general, is because of their communication power. And if we're not able to harness them and put them to work for us, then we're kind of just willy-nilly throwing it out there. That's what I mean by it's a mediocre experience. It's not really thought through. Now, if you were to wait in line at a store and ask for help with a refund, let's say you're at a grocery store or convenience store or something, and the person there treated you the way that the system that you're trying to seek answers from treated you, you'd be frustrated and walk out because they're giving you useless information. They're like, no, I don't know anything about that, but you did say bananas and there's banana flavored pudding over there. And it's like, well, that's not useful, right? That's not what I asked
it's
for.
great, but that's not what I wanted.
Yeah, it's not what I wanted. And you would know that, but you'd also have the benefit of nonverbal communication cues from me, perhaps. You would have prior experience with people coming in the door and asking for bananas or whatever, and you would use that to craft your response.
Right.
And I don't think we don't think through the customer's journey enough with our content to understand why they might be frustrated. And no, we're not always going to be able to provide them with a perfect experience where, there's always somebody who's going to come up with a question that's really too hard for us to have even thought about preparing an answer for. But I think those cases are probably few and far between. Most people probably go to a site, search it. If they don't get immediate gratification, whatever that might mean for them, then they leave.
Yeah.
And I think they leave with a like, that didn't, that wasn't very exciting kind of feeling. And you don't want that as a brand, right? We don't want them to be cheerleaders for us 24/7, but we want them to leave having a positive experience. And if I went to the store and the guy said, no, I don't have those, but you know what? I've noticed you come in for bananas in the morning and I don't think I've been ordering enough. Maybe I'll try, ordering half a dozen more. And the next time you come in, maybe there'll be some bananas.
Exactly.
It seems like he or she customized that message for me. And I think consumers are starting to expect online information retrieval services to behave in the same way, at least as close as we can get.
It seems, that's a lofty goal, though. It's not just a creation, it's a system, systematizing the whole process so that you're collecting data as data is being requested so that you can create more data to meet those requests. How do you even start doing that?
Well, I think for most companies that probably find themselves in a situation where they have a lot of legacy content because they've been open for business for X amount of time,
Sure.
It might be different than a startup. If you and I started a company today, we could start with the idea that our centralized repository was going to be a single source of truth and that we would basically look into it like you would a house. So a house might be a container for lots of things, right? There's also people in the house and rooms in the house, and each room is for a different purpose. If you peer in the window of the bathroom, you can't see usually the kitchen, right? So you're only seeing into the part that you need to. We need to build a window into our content that people can peer through. And in order to do that, we have to segment our content. We have to break it down into small pieces. We have to make it machine processable and machine understandable or readable so that when a human asks the machine a question about the content, the machine can go and learn something from the previous experiences and apply that to the new thing, or follow a simple rule. If somebody wants bananas, give them content about bananas. Don't give them content about banana pudding. They didn't even ask for banana pudding.
Right. That's
it's a big exercise.
For a company like my size, that seems like something that is, hard, challenging, will take a while, but is achievable. For a company the size of the companies that we generally talk to, that's a big thing, like millions of pages of content. And so first thing is, what is the million pages? What do we have here? How do we meta tag all of this, make it usable, and then findable, and then up to date? Yikes.
Maybe
right?
even before that, we have to think about, should we be even using the word page? Who said somebody was looking for a page?
Right.
Somebody woke up and said, let me find the page, right? They're like, well, I want the price of that vacation condominium I saw on that Airbnb listing last night. And when I clicked the button, it said, unable to process your request at this time, but you can email the owner of the property. So you email the owner and you don't want to know what page can you point me to. You want to know the price. What is the
Just have
price?
a
And
question.
just give me the give me
Yeah.
the answer. And I think the more that we respect that, we've hidden all the answers inside of all these documents, means that maybe the question isn't how difficult it is, but it is, should we unwind this kind of less than thoughtful approach to content that we've been following along with? And by the way, everybody on earth has. It wasn't like, your clients and my clients are somehow different than everybody else.
Right.
We were all taught to write in the narrative. We were taught to start with a blank piece of paper, or in a computer, a blank computer screen, right? And then we type away and we add our words. The word nerds start to create the content, and our power and our value was our command of the words. And now our power and our value needs to be augmented. We need to be able to understand the power of the words and use them in the way that is meaningful. But we also need to understand how computers interpret those words, and what can computers do to help us move those words around and get them in front of the right people, or in the house analogy, in front of the right window, so that when people peer in, they don't see all the other stuff that they don't need to see. They only see at least a slice that's relevant and less likely to be perceived as mediocre.
So it's moving from document creation to modular content. We're talking about XML or DITA, or some way of breaking up the content, identifying the questions that are being, or the answers that are being given in the content, so that those answers can be found when the question is asked, versus my original example of it's on page 3 of the product brochure.
Right. And we also have to start thinking about, why are we referencing these things? So inside of documents, when you start referencing a page or a previous paragraph, or you say in the paragraph below, you're making a huge assumption that the paragraph is always below, or to the right, or over here, or at that hypertext link that you added to it. And if you don't manage those relationships between where you said something in the content, see figure 1. Okay, if you don't have something that says figure 1 changed, then when somebody goes to read figure 1 and you've changed figure 1 someplace else, you've broken that relationship. And so broken links and poorly thought out uses of words to point people toward content is also littered inside of all those documents we've created. And so you can't just break them up into little pieces without reading them and repurposing and rewriting them for the purposes that you have today, without the danger of potentially breaking your content into little pieces and then moving it around and not making it any better at all. So there's a danger to it. It is risky. But big companies, I think, that have adopted this approach, it should be said that truthfully, they have not, no one that I know in any company has adopted it across the board in every department. So it sometimes becomes a turf thing. Like one part of the company may be more prone to adopt advanced information management and delivery capabilities than, let's say, another. And then that introduces a new problem. If you have a consumer who's exposed to that experience and also another experience produced by the same company but different departments, they begin to wonder, do you people even work together? Or do you talk to each other? Do you know that I'm the same person and you just sent me to 3 different websites that are all designed by different well-intentioned people who have the best in mind for the customer, but because they never recognize that the customer's relationship with the brand encompasses all kinds of channels in different places, they focus on improving their experience, not the overall experience. I think that's one of the things that leaders do seem to care about, is they want their customers to have a perception that it was a good experience. No leader I've ever talked to has said, please build me some stuff that has a shitty experience. Like, that's just not a thing.
Well, I mean, I use that example with our prospects. I talk about how some people might want to create content that just is completely unreadable because they're trying to trick you into something.
Sure.
But we don't actually have any customers that are trying to do that. I mean, it's, the example of this not working is when you have, like, for instance, your product manual team completely disconnected from your support team or your support portal team, so that in the manual, you're describing a process. And then when I have a problem with it, the support people are describing it in a completely different way. So
Correct.
I have a customer that makes motorcycles, and on page 3 of their manual, they describe how to connect the battery. It best be the same description on page 367 on the website, in support tickets, and on the
That's right.
phone.
That's
Because
right.
if it's not, then I'm more confused at the end of my journey than I was when I started, because
Sure.
you've just sent me in 10 different directions.
Brand voice doesn't mean your voice. Use acrolinks to stay on brand.
I was going to say it's common in our industry sector for leaders of companies that believe they can manage information better. So they're going to make some changes to become more capable, right, of delivering better content experiences, that they start to recognize while they go through the process of looking at their content. They start to realize that it's not the problem that they think it is. So they think it's a problem with the website, for example. Oh, our website sucks. Well, you go back and find out that there's 50,000 people contributing to the website, and there's no governance and there's no standardized way of doing it. And so, of course, if you read one document, and this has happened to me, where you read one document and it says one thing, and then you read another document and it says something else. So now, if it's an important thing, you may say to yourself, if I follow the instructions on example number 1 and I'm wrong, it's going to delay my loan or cancel my agreement or whatever, something important, right? It could be
Right.
an insurance claim, for example, medical procedure. So you have to call support. So one of the business reasons that investing in the complexity of trying to solve this problem is that the most expensive complaints that come from leaders is, why are we spending so much money on X? And X can be customer support or translation, both of which the cost is impacted by what happens upstream.
Yep.
So if you have better words and more control of your words, you have less issue with pricing on translation, because you'll better understand why the price ebbs and flows. The same could be true of support. If you have better support content, the argument goes, you'll have fewer support tickets and fewer support calls. I call bullshit on that. I say that might be the case, because in the company that has all the silos, there's the company silo trying to solve the content customer experience problem with customer support. But then there's the marketing team and a new product development team that's inventing 3 new products your customers never heard of before. Guess what? If you make better content for your existing customers and with existing products, some of them may come to the website and they can self-service in your knowledge center. And if you brought all the content together in one place, they might be able to stand a chance of finding what they need without your involvement. But if they start to lack confidence in what you've provided them, then if the risk is high enough, they're going to call support. And so if you've got people that are confused, they're going to call support. Oh, by the way, even if you've cleared up all the confusion, you can't fire your support team, because you're inventing 5 new products that have no history. The audience knows nothing about it. So let's say that we launch 5 new products and clean up 5 existing products. So our company has 10 products. So you would think if we cleaned up the 5, we'd have fewer support calls. But simultaneously, we're launching 5 new products. So support might just see a different kind of call. They may see higher call volume, but not related to your crappy content. It might be related to, it's a new thing and people are not sure what these vocabulary words you've made up mean. So they call for those kind of reasons. So I think you're right that it is painful for big companies and it can be scary, but it is probably worth the initiative if you're able to capture metrics from those other parts of the company where the confusion may lie.
I mean, and you talk to people. So I would imagine Mike Iantasca now from Abel.
Oh, yeah, brilliant.
He was on the show in a past episode and talked about what they're doing at Avalara. And he's starting from the ground up to solve this problem for them. They have this huge abundance of information that they need to deal with. And he's been brought out of retirement to solve this very problem. So there are companies that are ripping into this, but I think they're right now still the minority. It's still trying to get across the message that, like, we've been selling with this digital shift messaging for a decade, but it happened on like March 11th of 2020. All of a sudden, we're there. And your primary touch point with your consumer is your content. And if your content can't answer questions, one of several things is going to happen. And you've detailed several of them. 1, I'm going to call support. I don't want to, but I'm gonna. 2 is I'm going to leave.
Right.
There's probably other outcomes, but those are the two big ones. One, I'm going to cost you
Yeah.
money, and two, I'm not going to be your customer anymore.
Or
And
three, I want to publicly shame you. So I'm going to go to all of the places, including your customer community, which, by the way, is probably on a different URL,
Mhm.
somewhere else far away, but that somebody else will stumble into. And then they'll hear something that causes them to wonder, am I making the right decision? This looks like a great tool for me, but I'm reading the experiences of these people who actually used it, and they couldn't find any information. And I don't have the information to make this tool work. I need a really great source of information. Maybe I shouldn't buy that product.
Maybe there's
So you
probably
can,
something else.
yeah, you could damage the perception just by that. I think that the example you brought up for your listeners is Avalara. And for the listeners, that's a company that provides financial services information to tax related service businesses. And so it's very, very formal, and the content has to be the right content. It can't be kind of sort of close. It has to be exactly the right thing when they need it in the right way, or all confidence will be gone
Right.
in their brand, and there will be no way for them to make money. So they're investing, I think, because they understand that the power of that content drives every piece of revenue and every piece of business, and it keeps customers loyal who could go to competitors of Avalara, right? But if you don't introduce confusion, if you try to provide the most capable content environment that you can, right? Not all companies are equal, so not all companies will be able to afford to do or have the maturity and experience to do everything. But if you take baby steps and you start pushing along, you'll start to see where all these little pieces add up. I'll give you a great example. There is a content company that many of your listeners could hire that would help them do things like prepare their content for a new content management system, or help them prepare for translation or terminology management or something like that. And they have a struggle internally. They need to make proposals to sell their services. And one day they were complaining about how long it took for them to create their proposals. And I said, it just shocks me that you're not using the same approach that you preach that all your customers should use to manage their content. Have you thought about making all the value propositions that you're selling to your potential customer individual small items, like you would a data topic or some kind of technical documentation, chunks of content?
Yep.
And if you had a chunk that was called product description 1, and a chunk called reason you should buy product number 1 reason, right? And then reason number 2, reason number 3, you could then interview your customer on the phone or in person, and you could then just drag and drop the right answers to the questions and the products that you would give them as a proposal into one document very quickly. So they did do that. This company and I worked together. We broke their content into little pieces, just like we would documentation, but it's sales proposal content. Now they can weave their proposals together in minutes instead of days. And as soon as they saw the value of that, they asked the question, why are our proposals documents? And I thought to myself, well, what, I don't know where you're going here, but this sounds super interesting. Tell me about it. And they said, well, when the consumer lands on the information, do they really care if it's a piece of paper or a PDF or a screen on a website? What if every proposal we gave was a knowledge center? And the proposal was the main content. Hey, Donna, thanks for your call. I learned from you that you have 3 big problems. So I've got 3 solutions I'd like to recommend, and they're right here. But it only has the title of it and a short description. And then there's some links to how does this work? How much would it cost? How long does it take? All the questions that was previously in your long proposal. So my client had a 50-page proposal. Now they have a 1-page website, and you click on the link and you land there, and it has all the references to everything, all the vocabulary words that they use. They've defined in a glossary, but they don't define it in line. Right. So they didn't write this really lengthy narrative. They wrote a short and snippy narrative with the ability to find and get to the content that you need. And they presented it as a hypertext link document. And I just thought that was brilliant. It's a great way to have an aha moment, which a lot of your listeners might have if they start to kind of dig into their content and look at it with a critical eye. Why are we doing this? The minute that you mentioned pages, the very first thing my brain said is, why a page?
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes total sense. It's rethinking the way that you deliver information.
Yeah. But until you're exposed to ideas like this, like it wasn't my idea. it was my client's idea. And I was like, that's really smart. Let's explore that. And so we did. And I thought, we need to do this more. When could we give somebody a better experience? If you think that your PDF delivery of content is not the best experience, right? Giving everybody PDFs all day long instead of hypertext linked content. And then you find out that your people prefer the website. They don't really want to download a PDF. Why create PDFs anymore? I think it's just because we've been doing it for a long time. Maybe the same reason we create pages.
Right. I mean, it's funny. So my company is in Germany, headquarters in Germany, and we're here in the US. And when receipts come in from Square, for instance, it's an email, and I put them in my expense system. And Germany's immediate response, the team in Germany in finance, is like, I need a PDF. Why? This is a page built on a website, and in your PDF is just a photo of the same thing. So I can PDF this email and attach it, or I can just send you the email. And getting that message across, it's just learned behavior. Like I'm just looking for the PDF. Could you just give me the PDF?
Yeah, well, you're right. You're right about that. It is usually learned behavior. I think there might be the occasional exception to the rule, which would be maybe in a regulated environment where there's some outdated regulation that requires a PDF or something like that. But in those situations, I think that's a different than I'm used to it this way. Can't you just do it the way we've always done it? And I think we've got people working in these companies, and we have to figure out, and people sometimes don't like to hear this word when I say it, but we have to figure out how to manipulate the behavior of the people that we want to do whatever we want them to do in a good way. We're not evil scientists trying to trick people, but sometimes you'll have to encourage some people, right, in order to participate, and others will see the value immediately, right, because we're all so different. And if we have a one-size-fit-all content model, then we're missing the opportunity to communicate effectively with other people. And so the value for investing in the complexity of advanced information management, XML, publishing to multiple channels and omni-channel is really looking at your customer and seeing, how can I make the most bang for the buck with the least amount of waste? Excuse me, and bring the experience to a positive instead of a frustrating or a mediocre one.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think the thing worth noting for the people listening is when we talk about XML and data and structured content, it sounds like we're talking about technical content. And that ideal is moving further and further into the rest of the organization. Marketing is using structured content. It's this idea of snackable, bite-sized pieces of content that can be dropped into any use case, live across the business. So this is not limited to one particular audience inside the organization. This is where we're headed.
Yeah. The savvy organizations tend to bring people together from different departments who have open minds and the willingness to learn something new. They sometimes don't go in the direction you think they might. They solve these problems in unique and creative ways using the technologies that they have available today. And that's the innovation, right? We want somebody to disrupt the status quo. If you say, I don't need a PDF, and from now on, we do no PDFs at this company, if you've got a plan and you can make it work, you might end up with no PDFs, right? Just like people say, we don't use, I have 6 or 7 now local little businesses around me that refuse to take cash any longer. And I live in a place that's technically viewed as a retirement community. And so lots of people of that certain age are not necessarily fans, all of them, of that. And they think it's a stupid idea because they're accustomed to money.
My dad goes to the bank every week. Yeah.
Younger people are like, who cares? My phone, my wallet, my watch, my ring, I'll pay whatever way you want. But guess what? It's all in a central repository. And there are different windows that you can look into to see how much money you have and to pull that money out, right? And that's really all we're asking companies to do. That product content in one place argument is super powerful, by the way. There are many, many, many reasons to want to think it through, especially if you thought about it this way. You probably have support content that you provide to help people use or repair, clean, maintain, or do something with your products and services. You probably also have sales content and marketing content designed to convert people to buy it. You probably also have training content designed to teach people how to do more advanced things with it or to set up a complex system. You may even have reviews from your customers that are published someplace. You might have social media, maybe an online community where your customers are talking about your products and trying to help each other do better with the software that you've developed. If you put all of that information in one place, that person can see what you, the company, says. They can see what other people say, the reviews. They can read comments from people in the community, and they can start to have a better understanding of the picture of your ecosystem of your company. And whether or not there's just one or two complainers in the social media group, or is it a trend that lots of people are confused by this content and it's not just you?
Just a bloodbath in there.
It really is. It can be a mess. And I think as long as companies are trying to solve problems with software and they're not thinking about how can we integrate them together when appropriate to provide value, they're missing an opportunity that many other businesses have already, especially manufacturing, have already discovered, right? Manufacturers have intimate relationship with the companies that make the components that they use to assemble their products. And so they establish these kind of standards where they communicate in a very specific way. And if you're going to do business with my car manufacturing company, you're going to give me content in this way. Oh, it's nice that you're used to doing it in a PDF, but that's not how we do it, right? And if you want the relationship, you will do what they ask. And when they do that, the information flows more freely. There could totally be better ways to do it. But I think for now, our disconnected way can't support the multi-channel, omni-channel world we live in. That's the real problem. We can't just add more humans to the job roster. And even if we did, we're just adding more complexity that will be difficult to manage.
People with different voices and different thoughts. So I'm sitting at my desk listening to this episode. I need to do something. How do I get in touch with the Content Wrangler to help me solve some of these problems?
You can jump onto the contentwrangler.com website, and there is a button called schedule an appointment or request an appointment or something like that. And there are two options, and one of them is to tell me about your content problem. And I allocate a couple of half-hour sessions a week to doing that. There's no charge. I just listen to people and say, look, I'm not really familiar with that, or I am. Here's a book. Here's 3 people you might want to call. Here's a website that, pretty much has all the answers that you're looking for. So I'm happy to do that for people and help them. And I'll even refer them to content experts that have way more specific, industry specific, or vertical niche specific talents. So yeah, we can do that. And I'm happy to do that.
Fantastic. Scott, thanks for being on the show. This was incredibly informative. I think people are going to be all over you trying to get help to try and make this happen in their businesses.
I'm the content hairball detangler. So if you've got a content hairball that needs detangled, you can contact me and I'll try to help you with that. Otherwise, I want to say thanks for inviting me to be on the show. It was super fun.
Excellent. Thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to join us next time for more insights from people who love words. This podcast was brought to you by Acrolinks. Continue honing your enterprise content by checking out other episodes at acrolinks.com/wordbirds. If you have questions or comments, feel free to get in touch with Chris and his team by sending a message to word.birds@acrolinks.com. That's all for now. See you next time.